You're listening to the Actors Resource Podcast with Aaliyah Lay, a podcast for actors and improvisers, with interviews from entertainment industry experts.
Our guest today is Scott Sedita, who is an award-winning, in-demand acting coach and author of the internationally best-selling books, The 8 Characters of Comedy, A Guide to Sitcom Acting and Writing, and Scott Sedita's Guide to Making It in Hollywood, 3 Steps to Success, 3 Steps to Failure. Scott is also the first acting coach to develop an app called Actor Audition App. A graduate of Boston University's film and television program, Scott has more than 30 years of experience in the entertainment industry. He began in New York as a talent agent, where he helped launch the careers of many top stars, including Courtney Cox, Matt LeBlanc, and Christopher Meloni, to name a few. In the mid-90s, Scott worked as a casting director for Danny Goldman Casting in LA until launching his Scott Sedita Acting Studios in 1998. A few of his notable alumni are Lana Condor, Ross Butler, Lu Richardson, and many more. He has also taught many actors who have become series regulars on shows such as American Horror Story, The Handmaid's Tale, Westworld, Riverdale, Legends of Tomorrow, The Goldbergs, Bless This Mess, Shameless, and many more. Your intro is, it's got so much stuff. So anyways, first of all, thank you so much for being here, being interviewed.
Well, I've had a varied career. That is probably why it seems so long. I was an agent in New York. At 22, I was the youngest agent in New York. I discovered Courtney Cox, Matt LeBlanc, Christopher Meloni, lots of people during the 80s. I had the shoulder pads to prove it. And then I left it. I just kind of got up and left New York City and left it and came to LA to kind of pursue what I went to college for, writing and directing. And I ended up getting a survival job as a casting director. And it was really interesting for me because as an agent, I sent you out. As a casting director, I saw you come in. And it was really interesting because there's so many things that I never knew that happened to an actor in that room as an agent sending you out. So I kind of saw both sides.
Right.
And during that time, I just ended up coaching some people that when I was an agent, I went to acting school. So when I would send you out on an audition and you were young and, you had some acting classes behind you, I coached you before you went on because I knew what to do. And I also wanted to, quite frankly, know what you were going to put out in the room when you went on audition. So when the casting director called me, I could simply say, yes, I understand she's new, but she's got a lot of personality and she's got something special about her and she can act, They would say, okay, great. So, we'll see you next time you submit. So I understood that whole dynamic. And so finally, I ended up opening my own shop, acting studio, 22 years ago in January. Right here in Larchmont Boulevard. Yes, sir. Larchmont Boulevard. Beautiful Larchmont.
Wow.
And here I am now, 22 years later. When I first began 22 years ago, I was the first acting coach to have a camera in the studio. And that was only because I was casting. And when I was casting, we used camera and lights, especially on commercials and infomercials, is what primarily I did. So I just brought the whole kit over. It was interesting because I got a lot of flack because I had a camera in the acting class. And a lot of people did not believe that a camera belonged in an acting class. And I understood that. But I didn't teach scene study, which was more process-oriented. What I did teach was audition technique. After you've done your foundational acting, I understood what the actor needed after that, which was to kind of get into the TV and film world and decide where they belonged in it, branding, who you are, what you're putting out, what are you offering, besides the acting, which is really primarily talent is the most important thing, You have to have talent.
Right.
I believe some people might not believe that. Anyway, 22 years, and within that time period, we've had a lot of people become very successful. Before the pandemic, I had 53 series regulars on the air. I also discovered about 5 years into what I was doing that people were actually thinking, well, maybe it is a good idea to have a camera in the studio, so maybe I should have a camera in my acting studio. So at that time, and I think this is a good thing for actors to understand, that you always have to pivot. You know what I mean? You do what you do and you keep doing it, but you maybe do something else. And one of the loves that I had, and one of the reasons I came out to LA was to do, comedy. Yeah. So I decided to kind of delve into something that nobody else was doing, which was text comedy, multi-camera and single camera comedy. And there began 22 years ago, the beginning of the 8 Characters of Comedy.
Yes, which I read, by the way, which is wonderful and lovely. And I also use occasionally in my improv troupe.
Well, it's been around for a long time, that book. It's in the second edition. It's going to have a third edition. It's sold 250,000 copies already. It's still one of the leading acting books because it's a niche book. It's about comedy. It's about something specific, about text comedy, Modern Family, Big Bang Theory, Mom, that type of comedy, and how to do that from perspective of, all my time that I spent with writers. And what they wanted the actor to understand what was in their head and put on their page, and to do it as it is written on that page because of the rhythm of it. So I brought that to actors with the 8 Characters of Comedy.
Right. And I think that is so important because, I just love comedy, but I never, ever dissected it the way you did in your book. And it just clarified so many things, and the relationships, and watching all the comedy in the past that I love, and seeing these different character archetypes as a primary, but not that they don't have these other aspects of their personality, but just that there's these archetypes. And it's like, wow, I never dissected it before. Triplets, extended triplets, turnarounds. I'm like, I just thought it was funny.
And the thing is, I came up with all those terms to make it easier for the actor to understand what the comedy writer intended. The funny thing about it, when it first came out, just to be clear, there was no comedy on the air. It was a comedy deficit that we were having. The dramedy was born at that time, but there was really no hit. 2.5 Men was a reigning, but otherwise there was nothing going on there, which is really interesting for me since I came out with a book about it.
Right, Ben.
Try to sell those students that idea. But who did pick up the book were writers. It's the writers who really made a big part of this book become successful, because beginner writers who ended up being some story editors and co-executive producers and then showrunners, they know this book. And I know that they know this book because throughout the years, I've gotten emails from them about this. And actors always tell me that when they go on a pilot audition and it's at the end thing is producer session, there lies the 8 Characters of Comedy in front of the writer's desk. And I think look, my book did nothing for them as far as the technique of the turnaround jokes and the triplets, what you were talking about. They knew that. They didn't have names for it, or maybe they did, but it was in their head, that comedy timing. I just named them so the actors would understand what they were. But it's the 8 characters of comedy, the archetypes that you were talking about, and the specific characteristics that break down each of those characters. I think that the writers went to and saw and said, I like some of this. I'm going to take this with a little minor of that, and there you go. And also the conflicting. You can put any of those characters together and you get conflict right away. And that's what we're always looking for. We're looking for conflict.
Nice. Because of your extensive experience and the fact that you have 53 series regulars that you've coached. Oh my God. What would you say one of your proudest moments are so far, if you have?
There's, my proudest moment, I think the success of the 8 Characters of Comedy. Mm-hmm. Honestly, the person who distributes my book just wrote me an email and just told me they needed 1,000 copies of the 8 Characters of Comedy, which was that was a surprise to me. I think the pandemic brought people to read more, maybe, I don't know. Yes, it was really great. Yeah. It's also in a lot of colleges and universities. So right away, there's 24 copies from college and university being picked up. But so I'm proud anytime that I would meet somebody and they've read the book, they like the book. I'm just, I see actors all the time around town. I'm happy that they're being successful. I will tell you one moment. You'll probably think it's crazy. And yes, I have a lot of series regulars and so on and so forth. But this woman came in to me to coach with me. And she was in her 40s and she was new to the business and she was really trying. She was an actress when she was younger, but she wanted to, now that the kids are grown, she wanted to get back in, which is a common thread I've seen many times. But she really had it, and she had talent too. Anyway, she came in to coach with me for a co-star role, which I believe is, I teach a class about it. So it's really cool. What was great was that she booked it. I was so happy for her because she was so pleased to have booked this role, and it was on the air. And I was happy for her. That to me is great. I still love when my students book films and TV, and I love it. I love that. So, when the actors work, I'm happy.
That is so huge because, it's wonderful to get an audition, and then even getting a callback is amazing. But actually booking, I mean, the chances of booking we know is like
happens. It happens. You just have to.
It does.
I know. I've been in the business a long time. It's a very hard profession. I understand.
Yeah.
But I believe, I'm a hopeful person. I believe that it's important that you believe in yourself and that you work hard. It's about working hard.
Yeah.
And that's what's going on right now. I mean, what's happening now with this pandemic is challenging everybody. Everybody in this business is being challenged by this. Whatever level they are economically, it's just challenging all the way. And I believe that this is the time that we have to kind of check in with ourselves as artists and say, we can make it through. Mm-hmm. We can do this. Because I believe a lot of people will drop out. And they have already, and it's, the survival of the fittest in the business. But I do believe that for those people who have, this is the time that you dig deep, you know what I mean? And you believe in yourself and you do the work. There has to be work. Yeah. From day one of this whole thing, I've been on Zoom, which is something I was not necessarily interested in doing, but I got on right away.
Yeah.
Because it's part of what's happening.
Do you have suggestions for people during this time towards what we were hoping was the tail end of the pandemic, but now we're getting more spikes? People are sometimes getting discouraged, especially in the acting industry, entertainment industry, but especially actors. And yes, digging deep, continuing the work, still I love that you say believe in yourself because that's also in your book. I love your affirmations. Any other ideas or suggestions for people to help them dig deep that might be feeling a little, discouraged?
So as you probably know, I did my seminar, my 10 steps to staying home, which is, you talk about what I was proud of. That was I did that on the 16th of March because I knew what was going on and I knew people would just be frozen. And I said, what are the 10 actions we can take at home? Let me just tell you, I just put them together. I think they ended up being good after all. Mm-hmm. But I love that people wrote me and said, I did them and it gave me purpose and I did things. People need to be told. I do too sometimes. Just do this. You know what I mean? If this is what it is, just do these steps. And at least you know that you are contributing and that you are actually actively working. So my answer to the question for you, for actors, is very specific answer. I have one thing that everybody can do over and over again, and that is self-tapes. If there's a money issue and you cannot, be in an online class, then what you can do is work with other actors and do self-tapes. Listen, you have to at some point get some sort of critique from an outside source, but still acting is acting is acting. And because self-tapes are going to be here for a very long period of time, I do not believe anyone will be in a casting room in the next 6 months. There's always going to be that exception. I think everything's going to be online. So everybody get used to being online and knowing how to work themselves in a self-tape and in just even a Skype, situation. So, because I believe that's how it's all going to be going down. That's how it's going down. What do you mean how it's going? It is going down. It's through self-tapes. So if you go on an audition now, it's a self-tape. The callback is on Zoom. And it could be with just the casting person, or it could be with some producers in the Brady Bunch little graph there. And then there's screen tests over Zoom as well. So all actors need to get used to feeling comfortable doing self-tapes and also being on Zoom, because that is going to be your new audition room.
Yeah, the self-tapes is huge. And I saw that you're starting a self-tape class too. So did you want to tell anyone about that in case anyone happens? 'Cause I saw that, right? Am I right? Did I see that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, good.
It's interesting starting one. So let me just tell you this. You talk about a little proud I am. And this is not even, on March 12th was a Thursday. It was raining and it was starting to get into the atmosphere of that. It was hitting LA. I had an assistant who knew Zoom. I had bought Zoom and was going to go on Zoom, but I never did. That's one of those things you never do and you say you want to do. And I purchased it for the year. So that class, we went on Zoom on March 12th. What was interesting about that was that people did not want to go on Zoom. Actors did not want to be part of that. They didn't want to be part of online. They didn't want to do self-tapes. Though I've started doing self-tape in my regular audition technique class over a year and a half ago, meaning that the actor would send me their self-tape, and we would critique it. So yes, on March 16th, I started my self-tape class at the very beginning of the pandemic. I think I was March 12th. I think I was one of the first acting schools to go online, and all my classes were online self-tape classes. Wow. Because I knew about self-tape because I had already been teaching it for the last year and a half. So, and also I'm an on-camera guy. I've been teaching on camera for 22 years. Back in the day, because I had a studio that I would always, this is so funny, any soap operas or films that were done in New York, people would come out and basically, all I did was put people on tape, but I would put these people on tape. Then they would send the tape to New York, and that's how people got jobs in screen tests. So putting people on tape for auditions is something that I've been doing for many, many years. So, but I love doing it online, and I think it's really interesting at first I was like, oh, I don't know, but I thought it was really interesting what happened. What happened is that I'm able to see you closer. I'm able to see behind your eyes. I can then see, and I always looked in a monitor of a television or the monitor of the camera, but I just was sitting up close to you. So I was really able to see the depth of a character, or if there was or wasn't any, more so than I would say when I was sitting in my studio watching it on camera. I think it might just have simply been that I'm sitting at a desk. I never sat at a desk watching somebody on camera. I've always sat, standing behind the camera. Right. I prefer standing. I've stood for 22 years. That's why I have bad feet.
Okay.
I have to wear Birkenstocks. Because I was standing. And not only the 22 years of being an acting teacher behind a camera, but the 5 to 6 years before that as a casting director. Lots of years on my feet.
Yeah. With your varied experience, what would you say are 3 or 4 traits that you've seen in people who are successful as actors in the industry? And also maybe 3 or 4 things that you see that doesn't serve the person, and to try to not do that because it creates failure in a person. Okay.
So are you referring to my book, the Making in Hollywood book?
No, I was just talking in general, but yes, I read that book too. There were a lot of tips in there for success.
I am redoing the Making in Hollywood book because it talks about fear.
Yes.
And it really underlines here, my 3 things that actors need to do to be successful is to believe in your talent and to work your talent constantly, which will give you confidence, and to put yourself out there, which is perseverance. It's a daily activity one has to do, and they have to sacrifice to do it. Only through sacrifice, whatever they have to sacrifice in order to do it, I believe when they time will come, and it does come. I've seen a lot of people from starting out to becoming superstars. When the time comes, you will be way more prepared if you've sacrificed and understood what it takes to become successful. And so I always say sometimes people who are in their 30s or early 40s who all of a sudden become successful are so much easier to be able to handle than some of the late teens or early 20s, when most people do become successful in their 20s up to their 30s, when the time, at least the people that have run through this studio. Though I've had so many people become working actors who started their career again or late in their late 30s, early 40s. But either one, it takes a great amount of energy and focus. But I just believe that confidence, talent, and perseverance is the way to go. And also understanding who you are and understanding this is a business thing. This has nothing to do with your craft. It has to do with understanding who you are as a person, and understanding who you are as a person will permeate everything you do. Understanding that your sense of humor, understanding you and accepting it, and be willing to use that as your art to put out, and hopefully being able to tell people who you are. So I think that it's important to actors to be truthful to who they are, but you have to have the combination of being truthful to who you are at the same time as to be likable and have that craft hold up everything.
Right. So craft is number one, but also knowing the business is number two.
Yeah, some people would say there's a lot of people who made it successful who weren't very talented. They're successful. I don't believe there's many people out there who are just terrible actors who are working and successful. I don't believe that there's, like, oh my God, I watch so much television. There's just different characters and different types of TV shows and different types of acting. I do believe there's some better actors than other actors, but, no one gets a TV show and lasts for a while when they don't have that talent to act. I don't believe that.
Right.
And the thing is what the actor needs to do is to keep working. Mm-hmm. That is the biggest problem because it's a
muscle.
Well, it's a self-starter. You're constantly self-starting yourself, and it's so hard to get up and self-start yourself. And it's hard. You want somebody to find somebody else who's doing the same thing as you and give each other support and guidance and an ear to listen to. And also contribute to the world. I think it's important. If you're an artist, any way you can contribute, any way you can do your thing, whether it's singing, acting, dancing, whatever, any way you can put it out, because, that's what it's all about, putting out your gift to the world and having that be an impact on them in a positive way.
Yeah, totally. I think Pablo Picasso, there's a quote, and I'm going to massacre it, but he said something like, your talent is your gift, and then giving your talent is your service to the world. So whatever that is. I've totally massacred it, but something like that.
I liked it. I got it. That's that's very nice.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Anyways, thank you, Scott, so much. Please promote anything you have so that so amazing. Thank you for being on. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You give so much.
If anybody's interested in classes, they just can go to scottseditaacting.com and they can check them out because we have comedy intensives coming up. We got stuff. Hey, you know what? I'm a small business and I'm trying to make it just as like you who is a small business as well. We're all small businesses and we're just trying to make it. So, and that just takes hard work and dedication and a positive attitude. So, okay.
Cool.
Take care.
And thank you for listening to the Actors Resource Podcast with me, Aaliyah Lay. I would love to hear from you, so email me, AliyahKLay@gmail.com, ALYAKLEI@gmail.com.